Nope, I don't have one. Welcome, everyone, to the Awful Takes podcast. My name is Nabahi.
Hello, I'm Wallied from Sergata Productions.
Episode 12.
Yay! Yes, episode 12.
Episode 12.
1-2.
We have a very, very amazing movie to talk about, and we will get to that in a bit. This is the Awful Takes podcast, where I spend hours of my time and day to explain my awful takes, and I force people to listen to them.
And I try to give people some decent, good recommendations every once in a while.
I've told all my family and friends to subscribe, and they haven't yet. So that should speak waves as to who I am as a person.
I can't get my bots to subscribe. I don't know how we can get more subscribers, but yeah, my bots ain't working at the moment, unfortunately.
But thank you, everyone, for joining us. For those of you guys who don't know, we have a YouTube channel and a Spotify channel now, wherever you're joining us. There is a description. If you would like to skip ahead straight to the review, please feel welcome to do so. We're going to cover a little bit of movie news at the start. And that's pretty much how the structure of our show goes. So if you want to skip ahead, please do so. Timestamps are in the bottom or on the slider of the YouTube video. Not the biggest week in movie news, I would say, but something that caught me and Wallied's interest, regrettably so,
Unfortunately,
is a film coming out that I've mentioned maybe a little bit on this podcast before, and how I'm just not interested at all. I just don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I know people will give this guy a lot of praise, and rightfully so. He's made some of the greatest movies of all time. But as we always like to say, and quote Tarantino, some directors can move past their prime.
Yeah.
For me, it's already happened in my life about 10 years ago. So pretty much it can happen to anyone. And I think we're seeing it happen right now with Francis Ford Coppola. For those of you guys who don't know, he is the amazing director of The Godfather. Some people will say that's one of the greatest movies ever made. So yeah, we obviously have to give him his flowers. And I believe he won the Oscar for both part 1 and 2, right?
Yeah, it is the first sequel to win the Academy Award for Best Picture.
Oh, God. All right. So he's a 2-time winner of the Best Picture Award, which is kind of insane, especially in terms of like a sequel. So yeah, we're going to obviously give him some praise. Not some praise, a lot of praise, because that just doesn't happen. However, past those movies and everything, some people will say there's a decline in quality in his movies. It's arguably so. Some people will have one opinion, some people will have another. However, he does have a new movie coming out, and I've mentioned it before. It is called Megalopolis, whatever the fuck. From the moment I've seen this trailer for the first trailer that came out, or even the mention of this movie, I'm just like, okay, how generic of a title is that? To me, that's just so dumb. Megalopolis? Like, really? You think that's a good title? It just sounds like you took Metropolis from Superman and you just put Mega in it. It's so dumb. That is so dumb. I hate that title.
Yeah.
And yet it's supposed to be like this grand return of Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah, his quote-unquote last film from like what I've heard. And for me, I was kind of more on the side of, I had been hearing about this project for a long time. So I've been hearing about it since I want to say like 2019 or COVID. And pretty much I didn't think this film was going to get made because of the amount of production issues it's been through, the fact he couldn't get like a distributor or financier to like produce the movie. So I was kind of curious to see like what this movie was going to be. And I guess after hearing like the mixed response that it got from Cannes Film Festival because it premiered there, I was like, okay, let's kind of see what this is. And then I wasn't like you, I hadn't really seen the first trailer, so I was just kind of like, okay, let's kind of just see until like there's more info and more footage that came out about the film, and then we can kind of see, what it's all about. But after that second trailer, I have no interest to see this at all.
For those of you guys who don't know, I probably mentioned this before, but this film, I believe, was shown to distributors at the beginning of this year, maybe late last year. And a distributor pretty much is, the big studios that you hear,
Like
Warner
Fox,
Brothers,
Disney.
Disney. It was shown to distributors. No one wanted it. No one wanted it. And that speaks volumes as to, okay, if I'm going to take this movie on and I'm going to distribute it, do I think this is a sellable film to people? Do I think I can get people to watch it? And the fact that no distributor wanted to take it on shows you that the product is probably pretty unwatchable and pretty bad,
Yeah.
So right off the bat, I was just like, oh my God, like that's not a good sign for this movie. And now seeing this most recent trailer, oh man, okay, there's
Yeah.
something I don't like with film in general. I feel like this is the art form where I experience this the most is just pretentious people, and this trailer just
Reeks of it.
so much of it.
Reeks of it.
There is he puts like these stupid quotes of like his past movies and how people were like saying at the time, oh, they were unwatchable. Oh, this is this. And basically he's trying to say that people may think that about my new film, yet people have thought that about my past films. So he's trying to put two and two together, and I'm just like,
it's so corny.
I'm like, oh, it's so pretentious, and I just couldn't believe that I was was watching that. And then lo and behold, you put in some actual legwork, you find out these quotes are not even real.
Yeah, they're fabricated from like other reviews. Apparently, one of them was like from a Roger Ebert Batman Returns review. And it's like, why? And apparently, and then like I even looked a bit more into it. The first Godfather actually got really good reviews when it came out. You know?
Again, it won Best Picture. So it has these quotes that I'm just like face palming at. I'm just like, are you serious? Like, okay, whatever. But then you get into actual stuff in the movie, and I'm sorry, it just doesn't look good. I feel like, how did these actors get involved in this project? Like,
it has to be his name, right? Like, because they can say they worked with Ford Coppola, right?
Yeah,
that has to be it. Because it's like, and then there's like this time travel aspect thing that they're kind of showing in the movie, and I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna be convoluted at all, and that's gonna completely make sense. And then like the narration from Lawrence Fishburne. Look, I love Lawrence Fishburne. He's a really great actor, but God, his narration is terrible in this trailer. Like, I was just like, what am I watching? This just feels like a dumb, pretentious, egotistical project that is only getting made just to boost Coppola's ego more because he made these really great movies in like the 70s and 80s.
Yeah. There's really not much praise I could give to this at all. Since our discussing of it days ago, the trailer actually got taken down because a lot of people were up in arms about the fabricated quotes and everything.
Yeah, and Lionsgate ended up apologizing for it too, which I think is really hilarious. Because it's like
that is not a good sign.
Well, because I feel like for me, I'm blaming more the director because he's the one who self-financed the whole project, and he's getting final say on everything in the movie. At least I would assume.
Yeah.
So it's like I kind of put more of the blame on like Francis Ford for this. To begin with.
Overall, I've had no interest in this project, and seeing everything since I heard about that first distributor meeting or whatever, I'm just like, more and more it's just reinforcing my point that I think this movie is just not good. To me, it doesn't look good. I have no interest in seeing it. I'm telling you, this thing is going to have to get 10s, like 10 out of 10s. I'll have to hear that from a lot of my favorite reviewers, movie critics, for me to even consider buying a ticket, because I'm not going to see it. I feel like there's no way this movie comes out and it's under 3 hours. I feel like it's gonna be like a 3.5 hour movie or something.
So I did look. So it's like apparently 2.5 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. This just reeks of the word pretentious. It has it written all over it. And for
Mhm.
him to take that even further with those stupid quotes and everything, I'm just like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like
Yeah.
I hate that so much with filmmakers when they get entitled and they act like they're the greatest there's ever been. Again, that's my problem with Ridley Scott. And again, like yes, you were great for a time, but if you don't, consistently put out good products and make, good movies, are you still deserving of that title,
Yeah.
Again, people will harp on Shyamalan all day, but he again had some really great movies when he started his career,
Mhm.
and amazing moments in cinema history. Yet we're gonna harp on him.
But you're not gonna harp on Ridley Scott or Francis Ford for
Yeah,
that?
like look at this. Look at this. This looks absolutely terrible.
I'm sorry, like, I'm happy if there's people that are gonna go and watch this and they're gonna enjoy it, more power to them, obviously,
Yeah.
but I just don't see this really doing, like, great for me, because it's just like, what's gonna happen is this film's not gonna do well, it's gonna get a very mixed response. It already has a very mixed response from
Yep.
Cannes Film Festival. The film is not gonna do well, it's gonna flop, and then come 5 to 10 years, it's gonna gain this random cult following, and you're gonna have people being like, "Oh, this was a misunderstood masterpiece. This was this."
Ambitious. It
You know,
was
it
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 swung for the fences.
it did things that no other movie is doing,
Oh
and
my
it's just like,
God.
I see it happening, and, I again, I was kind of more like, "Oh, let's kinda try to give it the benefit of the doubt," but just after seeing this trailer, I'm just like, There's no way I'm gonna like this." Like, it just seems like a type of movie where it's like, the way it's marketing itself as like, "Oh, it's gonna change cinema. You're not gonna see movies the same way after." I'm like, "Just shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up." You know? It's not gonna change cinema. It's not gonna do that. Stop thinking that, like, it's this high elevated film that's just, you're not gonna see movies the same way. Just stop. Stop. Stop trying that, okay? It doesn't work. It's never worked. Stop doing it.
The only thing I'm happy about with this movie in general is thank God he put his own money into it, because if some other studio was paying for this crap and I heard that if I had heard that a studio put like 100 million and this was the product, I would be losing my mind. Like thank God this is self-funded, because this looks atrocious and
Who wants to put money into this though? Especially with like the concept and everything, and just from like the footage we've been seeing, like it's so obvious. Like why no distributor wanted it to begin with?
and I just can't see this going over well. And I don't know. Like I get it, people are excited. It's Ford Coppola, whatever. But I'm just like, again, this really feels like someone who has just a super high opinion of himself, and he thinks that he can make his grand return or final movie at any time, and everyone's just gonna love him for it, and he's gonna get that same recognition and praise. No, you have to try your best every time. You can't. This really feels like he just showed up and he just made whatever. I feel like he
Yeah.
didn't even really try. And again, like you have the privilege that most other filmmakers don't have.
Yeah.
Yet you have no respect for it, and you just feel like because your name is on it in general, people are going to give you praise, you're going to get awards, you're going to get, fame and everything. And it's like, I'm sorry, there are directors out there who have a fraction of what you have.
They wish they could
And
have as much as,
yeah,
that he has. And like, it's not even including, I won't even open this can of worms, but like just the amount of production issues this film has had, especially
yeah.
like with people talking about like what Ford Coppola was like to work with. Like everything I've heard is that he was terrible and that it made everything miserable and that he had no idea or vision of what he even wanted to get across.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I don't know. I really have no I really hope that people are changing their tune after seeing this, cuz I'm sorry, if you see these trailers and everything and you're excited, I'm just like more power to you. If you want to spend your money and go see this, great. Let me know how it is. And again, if it gets 10s out of 10s, I may consider go seeing it, but I really doubt that's going to happen. And this is something that I wanted to touch on. People will love to say this, and I hate it when people say this. Any publicity is good publicity. It's like, I don't think so. Case in point, the Flash, Ezra Miller, he wants to go around acting like an idiot and getting in legal trouble and everything. I'm sorry, the Flash flopped. It was a box office bomb.
Yeah, it was the worst movie of the decade for me.
They're giving all this trailer this cult following praise of, any publicity is good publicity. It's like,
but I see the publicity and I saw the trailer for it and I was like at least somewhat curious and I don't even want to see it.
And it's like,
you lost a viewer. You lost me.
So many people who are gonna see this and be like, what the fuck is that? And it's just gonna be like a joke. And again, I really hope this has no cult following in 10 plus years, because if I hear that at any point, some stupid ass reviewer being like, this shit's hard, bro, like you gotta watch it, like I'm gonna lose it, because oh my god, this I really hope this joins the Mount Rushmore with cats and everything else, because that's what this looks like. So yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't look finished. It looks made for TV.
I hate people who say that quote, any publicity is good publicity. I'm sorry. No. I'm gonna encourage people not to see this movie because it looks so bad. Who knows? I don't know when the movie's coming out. I don't know who's distributing
end of September.
it.
It's
Lionsgate.
My God,
yeah, we're close.
Yeah, so it's coming out pretty soon, and it's premiering at Toronto International Film Festival in a couple weeks. So, yeah.
Again, directors, you really have to try every time. You can't just come in by name only.
You can't just have like a whole period where you're just making mediocre movies and then this is the one passion project you wanted to make.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, why don't just put your best efforts into every film, regardless if it's like a director for hire type of thing.
Yeah. And it's like, there are so many films, like even a bigger name, one of the big names, Scorsese, he turns out
he's still making
consistently good movies.
You know?
And I really feel like he tries, compared to someone like Ridley Scott or whatever. They want to blame everything else but themselves. And I feel like that's what's going to happen with this movie. I feel like Ford Coppola is going to be like, you guys just don't understand. You just don't get it. Like this
Bro, this is the future of movies. What are you talking about?
It's ahead of its time. It's an unseen masterpiece. And yeah. I don't know, but if you guys want, I'm pretty sure people are uploading the trailer. Go watch it and go face palm to it, because it looks terrible.
Yeah.
It looks absolutely awful. All right. Wallied's going to be introducing his recommendation, and here it is.
All right. So I gave Nabahi the recommendation of a film called Aftersun, directed by and written by Charlotte Wells, and this is her debut film, which is insane. And yeah, the spoilers for this film, we will be getting into heavy spoilers for this one. And there's also some mature and sensitive subjects that will be talked about too in this film, so kind of a viewer discretion advised also. But yeah, the film is about a father and daughter who go on a vacation to Turkey. They go to like a hotel resort. It's not really like the best, but they make the best of it. And as you're watching the film, you start to notice something's off with the dad. And you can't really put your finger on it. And we'll get into it later, but the film really unravels itself in a way that I just was like I was not expecting when I first saw it. And that's kind of all I'll say that's like a general idea of the movie without getting too deep into it. So the way I kind of came across this film, it was like through festival season. It got a bunch of buzz when it premiered at Toronto International Film Festival. A lot of people were saying this was like one of the best films, and it kind of got on my radar. And it kind of just came and went. Like I heard people talking about it, and then like about a year later, like I didn't really hear as much discussion on this film. And I finally got around to watching it about a year later because it finally came to like digital and everything. And I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And it, I don't know, like I just sat there for 30 minutes after just like rethinking every single interaction, everything with my parents. And it made me like appreciate everything that I have around me. It just broke me in that way. And it just destroyed me emotionally, like on just emotionally and personally. There's a lot to say about this film, and I'm looking forward to getting into it. But Nabahi, first impressions. I don't know what did you think, kind of overall?
So this is going to be a very unique situation with this movie. Rarely does this ever happen for me. Watching it the first time, I was appreciating everything that I was seeing. The shots in it, great. There's a lot of good transitions and everything. On a technical aspect, I was enjoying it. However, I wasn't completely invested into everything with the father and daughter. No harping the performances or anything at all like that. It's just I was having a hard time, latching on just because there is not really a narrative throughout this movie. So that was something that I did find a little bit challenging. And I did notice I was mentally checking out frequently when I was watching this movie.
Okay.
However, later on, towards the later half of the movie, there's kind of a dropping of a bombshell, pretty much, and then that's when my interest started to peak in, and I was just like, wait, well, what's going on? Watching through to the end, I was just like, wait, what the hell? What's going on? Like, well,
Yeah.
what happens? And I immediately the next day had to go back and rewatch the movie. If I did not do that, I would definitely say I would have been cheating myself out of the experience of it. Because rewatching it with the added context of everything now you start to pick up on things. Now you start to see, the absence of a narrative isn't really that much of a hindrance at all. You start to catch on to things and you really start to get emotionally invested, and it becomes really depressing and very, very sad, but also very real and very genuine to the emotional parts of this film. People who suffer with depression and things like that it's hard to go through that stuff. But yeah, overall, after the second viewing, I enjoyed it a lot. Very understated. I'm surprised I hadn't heard of this before. Yeah, this has to be one of my favorite films so far in the whole 2020s, decade.
Oh wow.
I feel like this is gonna be up there by the time the decade's over. Just what you can do with low budget filmmaking. You don't need all this spectacle. You don't need super thought out complex narrative. Sometimes you can capture realness and you can capture emotion with subtleties, with not a lot at your disposal. And it can be just as so, if not even more effective than if you have everything. So many upsides to this movie that I want to talk about. But I guess what were your favorite parts and everything?
So yeah, I really love it could be a turnoff for some people, but I really do love the slow pace of the film and how everything does build up towards the end. But the reason I kind of love the slow pace is because when you're watching it, especially because you get a lot of Sophie's perspective, is that when you're a kid, time tends to go by really slowly. You feel like you have all the time in the world and you feel like nothing could go wrong almost. And I love that the film is able to just take its time with these characters and just explore the relationship, even though there's a lot of like unknowns to like where their relationship is at this moment, where what happened before this with I mean, you get little subtleties and hints with like the dad who's it's obvious he's divorced, he is going through a lot mentally, but he tries to be strong for his kid, at least we see in the beginning. And I just really loved that. And I love that the film doesn't try to rush anything. It just takes its time. I almost kind of see it as like a kind of a silly comparison, but like a slow cooker almost, when you're like, it takes a while to cook, but I think once you finally eat the dish, it's like it's worth the wait. One thing I do love, obviously, is the performances. I think the performances in this film are absolutely incredible. Paul Mescal, just he's phenomenal in the film. It just he doesn't even really say a lot of lines, but his his like face gestures or his hand gestures, just the very small little subtleties. It's one of my favorite types of acting where it's just very natural. It doesn't feel like he's trying to give like an Oscar worthy performance. And I love that you can just see it through his face that he's been building up a lot of stuff and he doesn't have the best support from a lot of people. And but he's still trying though, with the Tai Chi that you kind of see him do throughout the film, with his relationship with his daughter. And I don't know, it hits very hard and like that way. And like he really just incredible performance. And then the girl who plays Sophie, Frankie Corio, she's fantastic too. It has to be one of the best probably child performances I think I've seen in a movie. She really just like it just genuinely feels like you're watching a kid on the screen. Just with like the faces she makes, just with like, it doesn't feel like the character trying to. I mean, I know we kind of talked about this a bit with the Slumdog Millionaire Ponyo discussion, but like it genuinely feels like you're watching the director's childhood almost, come into play with this film. I really love like those camcorder sequences in the film where it's like you're watching these kind of memories unfold. It really adds a lot to the character, and it's like it's almost this like interesting portrayal of nostalgia I haven't really seen tackled too well in any film that I've seen. But yeah, there's some other plus sides I do have, but what were some of yours?
For me, I just think the biggest success of this movie, or at least the biggest upside for me, is the point of view of a child is very limited. You
Mhm.
are not fully aware of the complex emotions of an adult, and through your lens and everything, it's a lot harder to understand what exactly is going on. And not only that, the weight of everything and the weight you can have on someone else.
Yeah.
Oftentimes as a kid, it's just like everything in your life is joyous or a learning experience, or there's so much wonder to how everything works, and it's told through that point of view, to where it's like you don't fully realize what's going on with the dad.
Yeah.
And to me, that was the biggest upside, is just after it was over, I was just connecting and was like, now I get what's going on.
Mhm.
Now I get why it's not the face or the forefront of everything. Taking
Yeah.
that depression and that sadness and putting it center stage. It very much is the main part of the movie, but when you're seeing it through this kid's point of view, as a kid, you don't know.
Yeah.
Because I remember growing up as a kid, and my dad was someone who suffered with depression and bipolar mental issues. And my mom trying to explain it to me as a kid was always it was very hard. You could just tell she was stepping in the right places to kind of explain what was going on. And
Yeah.
obviously, as a kid, when you hear the word depression or whatever, you're just like, wait, I don't get it. Like,
'Cause it's just such a big word.
yeah, it's just like, wait, they're just sad. Why don't they just be happy?
Yeah.
And seeing that point of view really makes it that much more tragic and more effective.
Mm.
Obviously, towards the end, they cut back to adult Sophie, and how she's reliving these memories through this video and everything. And now, with the context of being an adult, having a kid herself,
Mhm.
she's kind of putting things together and realized what that trip meant to the dad and not just her.
Exactly.
And very haunting. Again, like Walid said, there's no dramatic crazy scenes or anything like that. And again, I really appreciate the film for that.
Yeah.
Doing the subtle approach, doing the point of view from a kid. Really, I was just like shocked. I was just like, wow,
Yeah.
I was not ready.
Exactly. Yeah, to touch on your point about the adult Sophie, like you see throughout that like and even like her as a kid, you see that like she blames herself a lot for not doing enough, you
Mhm.
know? And it's a feeling like especially when you do lose a loved one, you have that feeling of like you don't feel like you did enough even though like it was just out of her control, you know, she's blaming herself for her father's death even though like she was just a kid and she didn't really there's just not much she could do and it shows you that like even though like these things are out of her control, you can still control yourself and just the actions and the way you can kind of handle that grief and these nostalgic childhood memories that you do have with your father or your mother and things like that, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the film does such an incredible, well done job with that message that it's like, I think it is like just a really important message for people to hear because I know for me, like, I have this habit sometimes of just blaming myself for things that are out of my control. And it's hard for me to deal with. And it's like, I know exactly what that feeling is like when you're just but I think the film just takes that message to like just another level of like take it day by day, you know, don't let these negative emotional feelings get to you almost,
Yeah.
you know. Try to take the I guess it's like what my mom always said. Try to take the good in everything that you can get in life, you know.
Yeah. Oftentimes, obviously, I'm an adult now, but it's like when you're a kid, you're experiencing life and learning about things, the way the world works. But you have these moments as an adult where you are almost like in a time capsule. And then you go back to moments in your life when you were younger and you can put things together now with the lens of being an adult, which I think was the whole purpose of this movie.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the ending and everything, and the beginning is just like you realize what's going on, and now a lot like I did when I first saw this movie, seeing it at face value was hard. It was hard for me to connect with everything, but now knowing the end and everything, now I had that retrospective look of, okay, now I'm doing what Sophie did, looking back on everything now that I have a better understanding of what's going on. And the
Yeah.
signs couldn't be more obvious. So there was times in school where you were shown, when I had to take a health class, I was shown like videos of like knowing the signs of depression and things like that.
Mhm.
And it was weird. You would watch like a video and it's like you didn't really notice anything. And then they would be like, well, now here are the signs you need to look for, this and this.
And
And it
then
was
it's
just
like
like watch it again and now you're like,
now you see the
oh,
full picture of
yeah.
everything.
And that is kind of how depression is. It's if you're not keen to it and you don't have an understanding of it, a lot of times it can be hidden.
Mhm.
And a lot of times these people who suffer from it want to hide it. They don't
Yeah.
want people to know what they're going through. They want to be their best version for the people around them.
Yeah.
And very much that you see that's what the dad is trying to do with this trip. He's trying to put on the face for his
He
daughter.
wants to make it as fun as possible for her,
Yeah.
even though they're not like at like the best resort and
Yeah.
everything, you know. To kind of touch on the depression point, one of my favorite moments in the film is where they're singing, well, they're going to like this karaoke thing that Sophie signed up for. And the dad is kind of like a little resistant to it at first. He's like, no, I don't want to. And, you know, it kind of then builds up to this like argument almost of like he doesn't really want to. He's like, you just go do it, you know? And her singing the song, she goes up by herself and she just sings the song Losing My Religion by REM. And that scene is like, I think one of the most heartbreaking scenes in the film easily for me because it's like the lyrics match perfectly with what the dad is going through because it's like he's losing himself, you know, and you see Sophie isn't really that happy about it. You know, she's just kind of singing it. She feels uncomfortable. She feels awkward. And it's such a hard hitting. Yeah, that scene just hits super hard. And then not only that, but like you just see it in his face that like it's getting worse, you know? He's having a hard time even trying to hide his depression at this point.
Yeah, rewatching it, for the second time, it was just like, what? How did I miss everything? You know, like even from the very beginning, it's like they just got to the resort or whatever, and Sophie's on the phone. She's talking with the mom, and she's like, "Dad's doing his weird ninja moves or whatever," and you see him doing like the tai chi and everything.
Yeah.
And then, and a little bit later on, he, comes and talks on the phone, and the very first line he says is checking up on me, and then it cuts, and I was just like, whoa, that I was just like, oh my god, how did I not notice that? Like,
Yeah.
people who go through these situations, they kind of do feel like a burden to other people, and the fact that he said that line was just like, whoa, oh my god, I missed that. What the heck?
Yeah.
And then later on, it comes back to they don't show the conversation between him and his ex-wife, but then it comes back. You can tell that he was sad. He's been crying, and it's just like, how did I not notice this? And then obviously later on, you hear that they're divorced or whatever, and you're like, okay, maybe that's what's affecting him or whatever. But I like that they showed that he he's fully aware of how he feels and everything. But at times, that sadness and everything, he may be with his daughter. He may be in the settings to be in the happiest situation he could be in. Yet he can't help but, you know, these feelings can slip through. These feelings of sadness and everything can find their way to the forefront of your mind, and they can project themselves onto to everything around you. And that was really depressing, but also really effective. One of my favorite parts is when he was talking to the scuba instructor, and he almost has this moment of, you're with a person who has no stakes in who you are. They don't know anything about you. You're not close to them at all, yet you feel like you can open up to them because of that uh, anonymous feeling. So he kind of does open up to that instructor, and he's just like, you see that he's explaining what he's going through, this and this, and that to me was just a very poignant moment of the real you slips through. You put on this mask every day while you're going through this depression because you don't want to burden everyone else around you. Yet at sometimes it's going to come out. You're going to
Yeah.
say it in one way or another. And that was sad. It was very sad to see that. It was just like a beg for help, yet he didn't make it wasn't effective. That person doesn't know him. He's not going to check up on him.
Exactly. And
And
his daughter comes back, and it's just
yeah,
like you kind of see it kind of shift, where
yeah,
he's just almost like, "Hey, did you forget your goggles?" Hey, like he's almost taking it out on her in that sense. And
yeah,
it's just like that's something that does just sometimes happen with some
yeah.
kids. It's like even though like again, it's not their fault, but
Mhm.
they just kind of get sometimes burdened with their parents' depression, and
Yeah.
obviously it's hard for them to handle too and everything.
Definitely for me, I'm getting help. There's a lot of sadness in the shots and everything. Obviously, one you see like the there's a shot of him, his daughter's interviewing him, and she's like wanting him to discuss further. Oh, I wanted to interview you, and he's like, turn the camera off, this and this. But in that same shot, you're watching the TV and it play out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yet on the side,
Yeah.
you see these books that I didn't notice when I first watched it.
Mhm.
One obviously is very apparent, it's a Tai Chi book, uh, and a lot of them are like these self help books, and you really start to understand that he's trying his best to fix this.
Yeah.
He's not wanting to stay in this darkness. He's wanting to get back to where he was,
Yeah.
and to a kid in the beginning, she's like, he's doing his weird ninja moves or whatever. And it's like, she doesn't fully realize exactly what that is.
Yeah.
He wants her to do these things, Tai Chi with him, this and this. It's really him trying to make himself feel better. It's him grasping at everything. And I've been to that point where you've been in these deep depressions and you look inward and you re examine things in your life pretty much that becomes hopeless to try to fix yourself. Then you start to go to these outside sources of things that you hear about, you know. I've been to that point where I've tried to do like meditation, especially like I had a span of like 2 years where I suffered with really bad anxiety, and I was grasping at anything to try to solve it. And it was such a dark moment in my life. And you go to those outside sources, you try to make anything work at that point. You're just so much in a dark place and depression that you just want to have some sense of normalcy, and you'll do anything to feel that way again. um, and seeing that with that interview and everything, that moment, and seeing all those books on the side, I was just like, oh my god, I was just like, I can't. I was
Yeah.
like, this feels so real. um, yeah,
One
again, it's super effective. Um, you really have to notice the subtleties. You have to notice where the camera doesn't show. You have to notice the cuts and everything. And you really start to paint a full picture of what this guy is going through. And
mhm.
even then, there's no point in the film when they really describe everything in extreme detail. There's no revelation. There's no, great examining of his character, because again, you're seeing this through the point of view of a girl. She's not going to know everything, you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely.
Yeah,
One
crazy.
thing one thing I wanted to mention with that scene too, it also hits effective too, is sometimes kids do ask these questions to their parents, and sometimes these parents don't want to be too vulnerable for their kids
Yep.
because they want to, they want to they they want their kids to kind of see them as like a good figure, they don't want to see them at like their low points in their life, they want to just kind of mostly give them the positives, and I think the film does such an incredible effective job with that, in that scene in particular. And then like the scene where they're watching like the Macarena dance, and it's like it's such a small moment, but it's these little things throughout, with the more lighthearted moments of the film, like her going playing pool with her dad and those other teenagers that she meets, it goes to show you that like you try to just appreciate the little things in life, and that you shouldn't take like, especially a vacation, you shouldn't take it for granted, even if it's not the best vacation, because you're still spending time with your family,
Yeah.
you're still spending time with your kid. And yeah, sure, maybe you're not in the best place mentally, but it's almost as like, and I think like it's a big theme of the film, it's almost like an escape for him
Yeah.
to get out of this depression slump. You see him dance throughout, it brings him a lot of comfort, it
Mhm.
brings him a lot of joy. And you see throughout, with the flashing party lights and everything, you don't know what's going on, and then you get to the like last 30 minutes of the movie and you realize the whole film has been building up to this moment.
Mhm.
You see him dancing to Under Pressure, and again, the song, it's like the Danny Boyle thing. It like if it matches the tone, it matches
Yeah.
the scene so well, and you see her try to grab his hand, to save him, and she doesn't, and he almost gets just sucked into, like, you could say, the trance of like the party that he's at. It's almost like a metaphor of like he's lost. There's no way to bring him back,
Yeah.
almost. And then one of my favorite transitions in the film, before the climax and the ending, is where they're like singing happy birthday to Callum. It's a beautiful moment, and then it slowly fades to him crying on his bed. He you don't know what he's crying about, but you see the letter where it's a short, like little letter, like, I hope you had a fun time on this vacation. And it hits like bricks, honestly, because it's like he's almost just like it's like he's been bottling up all this sadness, and it's just like he's just letting it all out at that point, and it's so heart it's so heartbreaking, you know. And then, obviously the last like lighthearted moment where they're having like ice cream together and they're taking that picture is like almost like one last good memory almost,
Yeah.
it's so beautiful. And then again, that end sequence is just like absolutely fantastic with the second half of the song being like that orchestral version where it's like kind of like almost kind of like ambient type
Mhm.
almost. It's really 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 incredible,
Yeah.
One thing I did want to talk about a bit before we get into the ending is I really love the sound design in this film. I think it's absolutely fantastic. The minimal ambiance that you hear with like the pool or like just the people throughout, it gives it that really lively feel that like you're on the vacation.
Yeah.
I love those silent moments too of like where it's just quiet and you just hear like the sound of like the ocean. It's such a beautiful, beautiful like sound design thing that they use. And then
Yeah.
the minimal ambient music that they use kind of sparingly throughout, I thought was really, really well done, especially in like that scuba diving scene. Like the music was just incredible.
Mhm.
And then I wanted to talk about it and kind of get your thoughts on it. Was Callum getting that carpet?
Oh, yeah. So it felt very obviously seeing it, it's like you can relate not having money for enough stuff and not, realizing like, you know, you put yourself in these binds for other people, whether it's emotionally, also financially, just to kind of give everyone around you that sense of stability, and what
Hmm.
it means to provide for other people. Granted, I don't know the feeling. I'm not a parent or anything, but it's like I can see that. I've seen that in my parents before where they, will take those steps and go to that length to give me that sense of stability, And obviously, he goes, sees this carpet, really knows like I can't really afford it, this and this. Um, but obviously, it's something that's weighing on him, So he ends up buying it. Um, but then that object holds so much, resonance to Sophie later on, and cutting to the shot with her as an adult and you see the carpet on the ground is just like what that feeling is, you holding on to something that was kind of fought for, like that's you can't, get rid of those objects or things like that. They hold so much. Um
Hmm.
yeah. Very sad. Obviously, it really ties into the fact that his life isn't where he wants it to be.
Yeah.
And there are lines like that throughout the movie where it's like daughter asking him, "Oh, where'd you think you'd be when you were my age? This and this." And you find out that he sees his life as like this fleeting moment. It's coming to its end, and he just never thought he'd be where he is now. And I obviously I can relate to that. I'm almost 30, and it's just like I still don't have everything put together. I thought when I was young, oh, when I'm in my 30s or whatever, or when I'm late 20s, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to work out. I'm going to know exactly where I am, what I want to do. And it's just like that time passes and you become an adult and you're just like, I don't feel like that yet. I don't feel that way. But yeah, very, very effective.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I
crazy.
see. Yeah, definitely. I That scene with the carpet, him buying it, I almost saw it as him as like with the dancing thing. It's almost like a comfort and
Yeah.
joy with him. Like he has this. It brings him like some kind of inner peace
Hmm.
looking at the design of the carpet. And again, it's kind of like what I was mentioning earlier with just those little things, that people tend to take for granted, but people don't realize like those little things do kind of matter in the grand scheme of things,
Hmm.
you know? But yeah, I just that scene just hit me hard. Like even though it's just such a simple little object, it's just so clear how the film portrays it as like it's this really beautiful object,
Yeah.
almost where people tend to just see it as like just something on the floor. Like he finds just inner peace with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the ending. So they, yeah, she says goodbye one last time, and it's obviously heartbreaking, and it makes me want to cry even just thinking about it because that's, yeah, the last time she basically sees him. And you find out the camcorder stops and it does this really cool 180-degree camera shot. I don't know how they did it, but it looks really, really awesome. Where you see Sophie turning off the camera, adult Sophie turning off the camera, and then it goes back and you see it from Callum's perspective, and you see him turn off the camera too. And he goes back into the building, and you see he's back on the dance floor. And that's how the movie wraps up. And the film pretty much, obviously, it's up for interpretation, but my interpretation, obviously, is that he didn't he didn't make it back after that first vacation, and he ended up going in a downward spiral, as I see it, almost.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, it just hits you like a train, and it's just one of those things that just makes you rethink every interaction you've ever had with your parents or your friends or anybody like that. And it goes to show you that uh, try to make time, try to spend as much time as you can with your family because they are not going to be here forever and you don't know what they're going through mentally. And I think the film portrays it in a very incredible and heartbreaking way
Hmm.
as I see it. But yeah, I love this movie a lot. It's a very, very beautiful movie. And even just the thought of thinking about this film and just the ending, it makes me sad because it's like with the struggles, just everything you see and like her seeing her perspective from the child, from Sophie's like as a kid, and it's like you have all that like baggage that this unintentional baggage almost that that you feel like you could have done more, but it's again just it was out of your control. There's not much you could do as a kid, and it's like the film kind of shows you that you shouldn't have these regrets, that even though you should spend as much time as you can with your family. Sometimes some of these things are out of your control, and the only thing that we can control is our perspective and our attitude on how to kind of deal with those situations. Yeah, was there anything else you wanted to add or say?
Not really. Overall, it's just very polarizing, very effective at what it does. Again, not much is said with how much this movie kind of puts forth. You really are meant to kind of put the pieces of everything together, much like a kid would do. You don't fully understand the situation, and you may not ever fully understand it, even when you're older, looking back on everything. Yeah, the ending just super effective. Really just threw me for a loop and I had to rewatch it. But yeah, everything on this movie works. Everything's just acting, directing, music, cinematography, everything is just firing on all cylinders. I really enjoyed it. I'm very happy a movie like this exists now. Um, I can't recommend it enough. I encourage everyone to watch it. Some people may find the absence of a narrative a little challenging, which I totally understand. It happened to me when I first watched it. So I just urge you to stick with it. Check it out. Don't dismiss everything that you're watching in the beginning. There's purpose behind everything you're watching. And much like One Cut of the Dead, breaking those narrative molds is part of filmmaking. You can have a traditional type of story and tell it in a traditional way, but maybe sometimes breaking down those constructs that we put around ourselves for some reason will challenge us to make a much more effective product at the end. You don't have to stick to the standards that everyone else wants you to stick to. Yeah, a narrative in this movie could have worked. I'm not saying it couldn't have, but I do feel like it hits harder knowing what happens at the end,
Yeah.
knowing what you're watching. And I'm glad they took these risks. They could have easily just followed a 3-act structure and just went along with it and told the same story, but this hits a lot harder.
I'd argue like there is kind of a narrative to the film. It's
Yeah.
really, I mean, it's more character focused with like Callum and Sophie's relationship. I feel like that's kind of really what the movie's about.
Yeah,
But
I get what you're saying, but definitely I've seen a lot of reviews of this movie saying that the absence of a narrative kills it for them and they can't focus on something like that.
okay.
And again, it happened to me when I first watched it. Like, I had a very hard time connecting, at least to an interest point.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
was fading in and out, and I was like having to force myself to focus on what was going on rather than the story and everything carrying me along.
Yeah, for sure.
There was a
I
very
understand.
distinct difference. But yeah, overall, please check out this movie. Yeah, it has Under Pressure in it, which is probably the second best use of that song I've ever seen. Obviously, the first being the Venom 3 trailer. So yeah, I'm just kidding. No, I watched this movie and then the next day I saw Alien and was like, oh, that's weird. That's that same song. And it was in the trailer for Venom 3.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I haven't seen that trailer.
So awful.
Nice.
But yeah, I guess overall score wise, thinking a 9 out of 10. Again, I now looking back, watching it a second time, that beginning was a lot easier for me to connect to and stick with. However, first time viewing, if I just watched it once, I would feel different, you know. So I will say that absence of a narrative structure in the beginning really affected my first time viewing.
Yeah.
But now watching it a second time, I fully understood everything that was happening and why it was happening, what they were choosing to show, what they were not choosing to show. But I will say, if I just watched it that first time, I may not have the same opinion of this movie as I do now. I think I might be a little more jaded and confused with what I was watching in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just feel I'll probably give it a 9 out of 10 just because I can see other people having that same problem. I could see people not really connecting, and who knows, they might even just turn it off halfway through and just being like, the movie was about nothing. There was nothing happening. And it's just like, you don't get it.
Yeah.
You have to watch everything.
Yeah.
So I guess that would just hold it back for me just a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, for me, I really love this movie a lot. It's again absolutely emotionally and personally hard hitting for me. Love the camera work, love just all the technical aspects. Paul Mescal gives probably like one of my favorite performances of the decade so far, easily. Like him and Frankie Corio just do such an incredible job, and the film does such a even better job of fleshing out their relationship and everything that builds up like is just, it feels like fireworks almost, in the saddest way. But yeah, for me, I would give it a 9.5 out of 10. So little above, but I would say the one thing I do think could have been like fleshed out a bit more is just like Sophie as an adult, and kind of see how that like has affected her adult life, because we do get glimpses of it in the film, but I do wish it expanded on it a bit more. I guess that would be like the one little minor thing I have with it, but yeah, I would say overall it's a 9.5 out of 10 for me. I think it's absolutely amazing. One that just has stayed with me for the past year. And
yeah, check it out. Find it on Netflix. It's on there now. And
luckily,
just be ready. Be ready for the ride. Stick with it, please. Um, don't turn it off halfway through. Give it the time of day.
If it doesn't, I'm really sorry, but at least you guys checked it out, so that's all
Yeah.
that kind of matters.
Yeah. All right. This movie was hard to think of questions. So I think for the first time on this podcast, I don't really think we have any questions following this. It's a very unique film, and you know, it's hard to connect this to other movies. It's hard to, hold a candle to things that may have come before, which I think gives testament to what we're saying. It's an effective movie. It does its job very well. So yeah, we won't really have any follow-up questions like we normally do. Urge you guys to check it out. I guess we'll be talking about next week's recommendation.
What we got?
We're not in September yet. In September, I want to start our scary horror movie stuff leading up to October. However, I don't want to do this, but I feel like I need to. It's a depressing movie, but the only reason I want to do this is because it's about to be re-released in theaters in the middle of September. I kind of want to have this review out just to be, in the conversation when this movie comes back out. So I'm going to recommend Grave of the Fireflies. It is re-releasing in theaters, and I cannot recommend people enough to go and watch this movie. So I'm going to use that as my next recommendation, so that way when the movie comes out, we have our review and it's there and people can listen, things like that. Like Aftersun, this is a big, high emotional movie. It focuses on, to me, the most interesting conflict in human history, World War II, and the darkness of that time period and what we did. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Can get a little dark with everything. It is an animated film, but showing all this in animation, I think, just makes it that much more effective. So yeah, Grave of the Fireflies is coming up next.
One of the few Ghibli films I have not seen. All right.
I wasn't gonna do this at least for, I was thinking like a year or something, but when I heard this re-release was coming out, I'm like, nope, I gotta get people to go see this movie. I gotta encourage it.
Okay.
Not that this film goes under the radar. I feel like this is probably one of the more known Ghibli films.
Yeah, it's Isao Takahata's biggest film, actually.
Yeah. But I would say with this newer generation getting experienced with animation and things, this is one for the ages. So please, if you're watching this for the first time, be ready. I told this and when I discussed this movie when I first brought it up. It affected my life for like 4 days after I saw the movie. I was just a wreck. I really felt like I had no purpose. And it sounds sick. Like, why would I recommend this? But damn, is this an effective movie? Like, this is filmmaking at its peak, and people need to experience this movie. So yeah, that's gonna be the next recommendation. We'll get it out before September or before the movie comes out, hopefully. And then the next couple months we'll be starting our horror stuff.
Ooh, I'm excited.
We're gonna be going into the indie stuff, the stuff you may have definitely not heard of. Also some classics, also some funny horror stuff. We're really just gonna go at it. This is one of my favorite genres in movies.
Cool.
So yeah, I'm super excited. I already have my list planned.
I have mine planned too, so I'm excited.
I can't wait. I really hope you guys check all these movies out that we're gonna recommend. Because Halloween really is probably my favorite holiday.
Yeah, same here, man.
Yeah.
I'm like between this and Christmas, so yeah. So if you guys don't want to be spoiled for Grave of the Fireflies, directed by Isao Takahata, make sure you guys watch it before the next episode. I'll probably have depression by the time we record this next episode. So
It's gonna be crazy.
yeah. Well, I was gonna have to watch it at some point.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for being the push.
It'll be nice to just be like, it's coming out in theaters. You have a time to go watch it. Go do it.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, thank y'all for listening. I'm looking forward to everything we have planned for the next couple of months. And yeah, Aftersun. It's really sad, but very powerful nonetheless. And I'm happy we got to talk about it. And I hope you guys check it out. And I hope you guys try to stick with it. If you don't, again, I'm really sorry. Maybe slow paced films are not for you guys, but try to give this one a chance,
Definitely. Can't recommend it. And if you don't fully understand it, rewatch it because it gives you a whole new perspective. That's what I had to do. And yeah, if I was limited in my point of view, I would have missed out on one of the greatest movies. So please just stick with it.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for everything. We're going to close out episode 12.
All right.
And we will see you guys on the next one.
Good day and good night, mates.
Peace.